I'm just going to giggle.
I am so excited for today's conversation. I'm already laughing. I love dearly my soul sister, Heather Ruth, and the conversation that we're going to dive into today. Her and I love to go down the rabbit hole and have some pretty wild conversations. So today could be an interesting episode as we dive into what self-mastery means to us. So Heather, thank you so much for being here. I adore you. Tell me a little bit about who you are.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. As of course, you know, I adore you right back. A little bit about myself. I am a mom of two beautiful, very intelligent little humans at the moment. And I say that at the moment. And actually that's intentional.
Very specific.
Yeah. I'm a wife. I'm a husband. I'm a husband. I'm a best friend.
See? Told you it's going to be an interesting episode.
Anyhow, I'm a coach. And I'm training right now in Reiki, and I'm a healer.
Love it. Love it. So let's dive right in. What does self-mastery mean to you?
It means sorting myself out is what it really meant. So I would say about 4 years ago, I definitely didn't have self-mastery. I was that when my anxiety levels would probably be above my head, I would run around. I would literally run around like a little Tasmanian devil in a world of dust, trying to figure out what I did wrong. It was always what I did wrong. Why doesn't this feel good? And so what self-mastery really is for me is about just tuning in. It's allowing the space for pause and stillness to just tune in to say, okay, why are you feeling anxious? Because for me, it was really having to understand my anxiety and then my depression that sort of like wanes and comes and goes because I didn't want to take medication.
Right.
And so I had an option to take medication or learn about myself. And that's what self-mastery really became about, was sorting myself out.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, I totally get the running around like a Tasmanian devil. I was in that same situation with client work. I would have a client message me and I would take all of the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like it was all my fault that the internet wasn't working. And then I would spend the rest of the day freaking out trying to fix it when there was nothing that I could do to control it. And just having that awareness of, you know, where's the monkey mind even going with this?
Oh yeah. Is it hanging off that tree or this tree?
Right.
Right.
Palm tree, spruce tree. I don't know.
Oh
yeah.
It was the worst for me. I remember telling my husband one day, I'm like, I'm totally getting fired. And this is when I was doing my VA work. And I was like, I was totally getting fired. But what all of that chaos and anxiety really helped me understand is that I'm not meant to necessarily work for someone that, as you say, will send you text messages at midnight to say, oh, this isn't working. And I'm like, that's awesome because I'm sleeping. Yeah. Right. And so now I can't sleep. And so I'm up at 1 a.m. trying to fix something that I don't even know what it is that I'm fixing. And so self-mastery was actually even knowing at those times that something had to change. Take a deep breath. You know, what tools do you want to learn? And for me, it really was the brain game.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it really was.
Brain game.
Yeah.
The brain game is a game changer.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite word now. Game changer. Yeah. And I think I'm so passionate about people understanding and knowing who they are. And I think this stems to a conversation that you and I have had a lot of times, is where we think that everybody else's expectations of us are what we should go do. And as we were talking before we started this episode, fuck the shoulds.
Fuck the
right?
should.
It's not about doing what you feel you should do for everybody else and then forgetting about, wait a second, hello.
Well, yeah, but even in those shoulds, like you can't serve anybody if you haven't served yourself.
Yeah.
Number one, period. I mean, it's all my premise is if I don't fill my cup, if I don't take care of who I am, what my soul needs, what my body wants, and as a really physical human being, like, so I'm also a numerologist. And so like yourself, you know, I have all the numbers on the physical plane.
Yeah.
If I do not move, like physically do not move, I might as well just be standing in quicksand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
that's it. And that knowledge alone is probably the top key thing for me. And you gave me a list when we did my forecast or my productivity thing, and it literally is on my desk's, like my side table. It's the first thing I see in the morning, and I look at it and I go, okay, right, remember those top 4 things.
Yeah, I love that.
And go and do it. And that's self-mastery. Okay, if I don't move my body, and it could just mean like jumping jacks for 10 seconds. That's all it means. It's just getting whatever pent-up energy I have moving through my body. And so I used to listen to people tell me what I should be doing. And now I was like, no, that doesn't feel good.
Don't tell me what to do.
It's like trying to put on size 10 shoes on my size 5 feet. It doesn't work. Right. Right. It doesn't work. And so you guys, anyone I can tell anybody is find what works for you. Try to remove the shoulds. It's really what I'm working for in my all life and in my family life. Like telling the kids, like when I hear my husband say, hey, you guys should be doing this. I'm like, should they be doing that or should they not?
Right. Yeah, it's a really tough one. And I catch myself saying it all the time. And then I'm like, oh, oops, stop shitting on yourself or stop shitting on anybody else too.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really interesting how that's unfolded, because the more aware you are of how often you use that word, the more you start catching yourself. Awareness is everything, as all of my clients know. I sound like a broken record, but you need to have that awareness in order to have the self-mastery. You're always going to be pulled in multiple different directions, especially as a mother, or, if you've got family, anything like that. It's, you got to, feed the kids, and you got to make sure that the kids get to school, and you got to make sure your kids are raised in a healthy, happy home, and the husband needs to be happy. And since when did it become your job to make anybody else happy?
Exactly. And what I learned really quickly in my own depression was when I was doing that, and this is what led to my depression, is that I was doing that. I was depleting myself. I was putting everyone else first. I was making sure I didn't eat breakfast until, it became 2 in the afternoon. So it was basically lunch. And I was recognizing, and the only reason I was eating was because now I was starving. And so I wasn't eating good things either. So the more you do that, the more you deplete, the less decision making you make that is actually beneficial for yourself. Yeah. Is what I've learned. Absolutely. And so one of the things that I'm working towards, even with my kids, is I talk about self-mastery with them. And so we started it with, right now it's self-responsibility. They have to learn some self-responsibility, like regulation. So if we gave them a time to get off of all their electronics at night, and their consequences, they made it up that the next day they wouldn't get electronics. Perfect. Easy for me. But they have to regulate it. They know they're caught 5 minutes past that time that they lose it. And so now they have to be aware. So it's just about creating awareness for them. It's not about you being their taskmaster, their slave driver, because that's not fun.
No, it's not fun. And then it creates this dissonance in your relationship with the kids, or with anybody, not just the kids. And it creates this, like, I'm the boss and you have to do what I tell you to do. And that is not fun.
And I truly believe during these times, in this pandemic, whatever we want to call it, unprecedented times, there's lots of words I don't like using at the moment.
Gag.
Yeah. Our new normal.
What's normal anyways?
Oh, you know what? My husband watches me. So people will say, oh, I can't wait till we get back to normal. And he can just it's like I'm a cat, and he can see the hairs on the back of my, stand straight up. And he's like, shh, she's not going to say anything. She's going to be quiet, right? No. And I'm like, what is normal to you anyhow? What is normal? And I will challenge people, because I think that word is overused or even used incorrectly, because what's normal for you is not normal for me.
Exactly.
And so there's no universal normal.
Exactly.
And therefore it should probably disappear.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's why we have Rebel Radio.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So how has self-mastery supported you as an entrepreneur?
It's actually, if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be an entrepreneur. Let's just put it that way.
There you go. That's straight to the point.
Yeah. Without self-mastery, I wouldn't be sitting here. I would still be the Tasmanian devil, ripping around, working for people looking at shiny objects, thinking something's better on the other side, the grass is always greener, that's where I would be. And I think self-mastery actually lands you into a space of gratitude.
Yeah, absolutely. And it lands you into this grounded energy, I feel like, as well, where you know what you stand for, you know who you are, you know what your values are, and you know that you make decisions in alignment with those values. And so if something comes along that's not in alignment with those values, you're like, nope, blinders on, I'm focused over here. And to me, that one's been a game changer, because I know on a very deep level who I am and what I stand for. And if something comes along that seems cool, but doesn't feel right, bye, I'm out.
Yeah, and you've been a big help with that for me, for sure. I'm definitely like, I'm like, I see something and I like it. And then I'll text you and you'll be like, shiny object. Because you know me so well, but at the same time, it helps me to just hear that, to have some, so that's self-mastery in itself, that I'm not just hitting the pay button. I'm actually reaching out to somebody else first saying, hey, what about this? And trying to run it by someone that knows you well enough to say, yeah, you don't really actually need that.
Exactly.
And I think that's key for people to understand, is that you don't have to do self-mastery on your own.
Oh my God, thank you. Just because it's called self-mastery doesn't mean you're alone.
Yeah. I was really thinking about that, because I'm watching Rebel Radio and listening to all the conversations. And I was like, I really think the message out there that people have to understand is it doesn't mean you're alone in the world. Is that self-mastery is about you understanding that you need people too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why I'm so excited about bringing guests like yourself on to Rebel Radio, because I started Rebel Radio on my own. And then I was like, oh, this isn't very much fun. I want to talk to people. And so I brought in other rebels, because it's not just my opinion that counts. Everybody else has a voice in this journey of self-mastery, because it's not something that's just one and done. It's not something that you can ever perfect. And it's not something that is linear or a direct path for everybody. It's different for everybody. There's no fucking normal.
There's no fucking normal. I love that. That is exactly my thing. There's no fucking normal. Can self-mastery be measured? I don't think so, because what are you measuring off of? There's no one thing that you can measure off of. And I've learned this just by doing like reading. And when I went down the rabbit hole of self-mastery, once I started with my first was the brain game / conscious life coaching design. So when I got my certification as a life coach, and I was in the brain game before the brain game
was the brain
game. I was a part of the figuring it out. And so I've been taking it now living it now for about 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. Jesus.
Wow.
Sorry. Wrong word.
We're allowed to say whatever we want.
And it helps me, and I'm trying to I'm finding ways of how to speak about that kind of information with my kids, because I think that it's really important, and I would love to see it come out to other kids, or to parents that want to help implement that in their lives with their children. And so I'm just trying to figure, because the language has to change a little bit, depending on the age groups that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Some of the concepts can be beyond what they actually even have the reasoning for. Right? Because they don't have their prefrontal cortex. Trust me, I know.
Yes,
we know. We have kids.
Yes. Stepsons. Okay. So here at Rebel Radio, we like to speak our truth. What is one truth that you wish every entrepreneur knew?
Oh, that's a good one, Cindy. What's one truth? That it really starts with you.
Yeah, it really does. That actually brings me back to something you were saying earlier, is when you're so focused on helping everybody around you and you're depleting yourself. One of the things that came up for me during that bit of the podcast was that when you are filling your own cup up, when you are focused on what you want and making sure you're happy first, the rest of it overflows automatically, and you don't even have to try, because all of a sudden you're feeling spacious and gratitude and love and peace. And so that reflects out to everyone around you. And maybe you didn't get breakfast to the kids right on time, but they're happy because you're happy.
Exactly. And it's like the dump truck of gratitude is what I basically call it. So it's like
of gratitude.
I'm really good with kid analogies, just so everyone knows. You get the dump truck, but when you're full and you can just like imagine like sparkles or rainbow or whatever you want pouring out, well, that hasn't helped that it pours onto other people that are below it, right? So or with you or beside you or in the vicinity. And that's how I explain it to my kids, is that when you're grateful, your dump truck will overflow and everyone else will start feeling grateful. And therefore you stop wanting the little things that actually don't light you up in the end. They just collect dust in the corner.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny because you notice this when you go to live events. Nobody's been to one in a while, but when you go to live events and that one person walks in the room that you're like, oh my God, I need to know that person.
Yeah.
They have spent time filling up their cup first. And you can't help but notice it because you're like, whoa, that person has something I like. You're just attracted to them like a magnet.
Yeah. Positive energy is huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Right. So I learned that about myself. So I don't like to show up when I'm feeling low. And so I've been tracking my energy for well over 3 years now with my calendar that you've lovely given me every Christmas. And I write it in and I'm very diligent. And so I know what days are my optimal days and what days are not my optimal days. And so if I have to be online live and it's not an optimal day, then I have to go and do extra special things over here to bring my energy back up.
Yeah.
And that's huge to know.
Another level of self-mastery and self-awareness is knowing, okay, this is a 5 energy day, and I know that these days aren't always the best for me. So a little more self-care before I show up, or maybe I just don't show up at all.
Exactly. And then that, because your negative energy comes through video, the words you put into Instagram, all the things.
The energy contained within the action is more important than the action itself.
Okay, seriously, hair. Figure out what you want to do.
So what is one thing that you've discovered about yourself on your journey that has helped you to grow and expand?
That I have an endless well of love.
Yeah, you do. By the way, for all of our listeners, Heather gives the best hugs.
Yes, I do love hugging. And so I'm already giving hugs.
Yes.
Actually, a friend of mine popped by the house the other day. She was getting her hair done next door. And so she popped by and she was like, can I get a hug? And I was like, yes.
Seeking out the hugs.
And just give a big hug. And was like, I didn't realize how much I actually missed that. But yeah, I have an endless well of love that I had to learn to fill for myself, which now allows me to give it out to the world. And
Heather's just a rolling dump truck of love.
I'm just a rolling dump truck of love. That's right.
I love you.
And I'm quirky. What else did I learn? But I'm quirky. I'm more quirky than I thought. I can't remember a saying to save my life. I have tried and tried and tried. Like, you can send me a quote and I will read it and I'll be like, oh, that's amazing. I'm going to rewrite that. No.
Can't do it. Can't do it. I love it.
No.
Heather, this conversation has been amazing, as all of our conversations are. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
One last question. What do you dream of for the world?
I dream of the world that expectations are no longer in existence, that we can release them just so that we can truly see ourselves in the most authentic, most truest version of who we are.
So good. So good. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.